when that one goes. Does it? Okay. Good morning, everybody. This is Tony with Rebel Financial. Thanks again for joining us. Today we have a visitor, Brendan Kelley with Clean Fuels Ohio. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, appreciate you taking the time. So a little bit what we're going to talk about is what they do here in Columbus and Ohio. And really it's talking about where we're going with clean energy for vehicles and things like that, and some of what you do. So why don't we just take a minute just to talk about your background, and then we'll talk about the organization as well. So
sure.
How did you get there?
So I got to Clean Fuels Ohio. I started there a little over a year ago, and I believe in doing impact-driven, impactful work. And so climate change is a huge issue that's facing our country, our world. And so I wanted to do something that made an impact on that, and I wanted to go about that kind of work in a particular sort of way. So I really appreciate working at Clean Fuels Ohio and getting a chance to do the work that I do. They're a fantastic organization.
Okay. So let's talk about the organization, which is mainly, you guys are a resource for businesses.
So historically, the bread and butter of our organization has been consulting with public and private fleets around how to convert their vehicles to alternative fuels. So Clean Fuels Ohio as a whole is fuel and technology neutral. We work with anything that's cleaner than gasoline. So compressed natural gas, propane, biodiesel. We do work around efficiency, and then also, of course, electricity. So I specifically run the electric vehicle program, but even though we're an environmental organization, we understand that that's not how most people make decisions, and so we focus on alternative fuels technologies that are financially viable. So when we put together an analysis and a set of recommendations for a local government or a business that has a fleet, we will explain to them, here's the emissions reductions that you'll see by making these conversions, but also based on the drive and duty cycle of the different vehicles in your fleet, here are the cost savings that you'll get. And generally, we recommend converting to alternative fuels if a business or local government or state government sees a return on investment financially between 3 and 5 years.
Okay. And you've been doing this yourself a year. Prior to that, did you have much experience or knowledge? Because I know this is different than what you had done before, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
so I was not a car guy. I didn't know that much about electric vehicles. I knew that I thought they were generally good, but didn't know that much about them. So my last job before I was here, I was a policy analyst for Columbus City Council.
Okay.
So my background is in government and politics and advocacy work. And so I moved over to Clean Fuels Ohio partly because I just got married a little bit before that, and my wife and I had a baby on the way, and I wanted something that was more stable. Working on political campaigns, you're working 80 to 100 hours a week, and then unemployed campaigning. Right. So it's not a good fit for trying to raise a family.
Right. Okay. You know, a lot of what you mentioned, the fleets and things with governments, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it be city or state or what have you. Do you see also? I don't want to. I mean, is the impetus there from the federal government and the state government, and local governments? Do we see that getting some groundswell at all? I mean, I know with a Tesla you could get a tax credit for that. I mean, so where do you see that going? I mean, what could we be doing there?
Sure. So there's a federal tax credit. It's up to $7,500. And that's it depends on the battery size, but most all electric vehicles you'll get the full tax credit. And so that is available for most companies. Tesla and GM are in their phase-out period because they've sold enough units that they're considered to be kind of mature. But there's a lot of conversation about whether or not it makes sense to extend that federal tax credit. We're also seeing a lot of interest from local governments around supporting putting in charging infrastructure, having local policies that make their community electric vehicle ready. There's a wave coming of electric vehicles. Globally, automakers are going to invest $135 billion over the next 10 years in developing vehicles and in switching their manufacturing over to electric vehicles. So this wave is coming. Those big companies wouldn't be making that kind of investment if this weren't a thing. And so, part of our message as we're talking to government entities is you can either get ahead of this wave and ride it, or you can be swamped by it. Because the vehicles are going to come. You need to have the charging infrastructure in place to support them. Otherwise, things don't work out very well.
Right. Okay. Well, let's talk a second about the charging part of it. On your website, I know there's an area, a charging locator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would love to know the growth. Like, I see all these dots in Columbus. Like, what was that a year ago, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
But we're seeing it more and more. I mean, is that mainly a private enterprise when folks are doing that, or do we see a push from the government as well on that?
So where we're actually seeing the biggest push is from utilities. Most of the trends in electricity usage are down, whereas the electrification of transportation is the only opportunity that electric companies have to sell more electricity. And so there's a lot of push from electric companies to invest in charging. And so AEP Ohio has been a leader on this. They're a fantastic partner to work with. They're a member of Clean Fuels Ohio. They had put together a proposal that was then approved by the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio for them to invest about $10.5 million in putting chargers into their service territory.
Okay.
So that's part of why you see a really big explosion of chargers available in central Ohio, because there are rebates available that support that growth.
Okay.
And then other utilities around the state are also starting to put together proposals and programs. And then this is a growing trend across the country too.
Yeah. Are they involved, so actually in putting the physical piece in, if a private business wants something, or is...
So it depends. One of the things that we highly recommend is if you're going to electrify any significant number of vehicles, talk to the utility. Make sure that the electrical infrastructure can support the number of vehicles that you want to put in, and that you understand how it's going to affect your electricity costs. And if you switch to electric vehicles and don't have those conversations with your utility, you could be in for some surprises. They're all manageable, navigable issues, but you do need to pay some attention to that.
Okay. You may not, you alluded to this, so you may not have background knowledge on this, but you said electric companies were using less electric now?
Yeah, between efficiency, gains, and people making their houses more efficient for air conditioning, things like that. But also devices are
Okay.
getting more efficient in terms of electricity.
Okay. Well, hopefully we're seeing the same thing with fuels then too. So, we talked. You and I are both from Chicago, so I'm always interested. When we went back to Chicago, Phil, JB, and I, we had to stop at a Starbucks at a charging station, and it just doesn't make sense to me that these companies aren't putting charging stations. And if you're a business interested in having people stop in there, and you talked about some of the statistics. I mean, what do people do if they have to charge?
So most people that drive an electric vehicle use an app of some kind to find charging stations. And so if you're a business and you put a charging station in, you're going to that's going to draw people to your business that wouldn't otherwise come there, and then they're going to spend money because they want to stay for a little while. There's a strong economic development incentive for investing in this. The city of Powell, for example, here in central Ohio, put chargers in their downtown area, and they have seen, and they provide the electricity for free for people. And what they've seen is that draws people to their downtown area. People plug in, and then they stay longer than they might otherwise, and they spend money in shops and restaurants that generates economic activity, generates tax revenue, more than pays for the electricity costs of the charger.
Yeah. Well, I think going into an electric car, at times, especially if you run distance trips, you're going to have to take the time at some point to charge, right? So your cost might be time, but people just plan around it, and it's no big deal, right? So you might as well help planning around your business or your city and such.
Well, that's where, especially for long distance trips, there are different levels of charging, and that determines how much electricity gets pumped into the car. And so if you are looking for fast chargers, you're going to be able to get most of a charge in less than an hour. And so you just plan that around when you need to stop for lunch or something, or if there's an outlet mall or something, you want to spend 45 minutes shopping. So yeah, you just plan your breaks around that.
Right. And yet, I want to ask you about, what's holding people back when they're in a position to get electric cars. But the reality is, most times they're not inconvenience like that. In fact, they may go months and months and months without having that kind of a trip. So talk a little bit about that. What's holding people back? What are the fears and misconceptions of the public?
The biggest barrier that we see is range anxiety. People worrying that they're going to run out of juice when they're on the road. And the average person drives between 11 and 30 miles a day, and the vast majority of electric vehicles have range on a single charge that's greater than that. And so electric vehicles represent a paradigm shift. You're not going to go to a gas station for the most part. You're going to park at night and plug in your car like you would your cell phone. And when you get in your car the next morning, after it's been sitting in your garage for 10 plus hours, you're going to have a full charge. And so, imagine starting your day with a full tank of gas every day, and never having to go to a gas station, never having to try and find that. So electric vehicles are much cheaper to own and operate than gas vehicles. Electricity is a much cheaper fuel than gasoline, and an electric vehicle, the maintenance costs are a lot lower. An electric motor has about 1/100th the number of moving parts of a gas motor, and so there's just less stuff to break.
Right.
And so if you really need to take a road trip, you're probably going to have saved so much money over the course of owning your electric vehicle. You could just use that to rent a car for a weekend.
Yeah. Well, and I know for years now we've been seeing hybrid, like the secondary market for hybrid cars, right? I mean, used cars. Now we're starting to see more electrical vehicles come on the secondary market, right? And so as we see that, I think people will be more willing to take a chance on a lesser car. So I hope that's the way that we get people more introduced.
Yeah, you can save a lot of money that way. A used Nissan Leaf from 2017, you can get that for $12,000, and then you're gonna save a ton of money on just the ownership and operation of fuel costs.
Yeah, well, especially if you're putting any miles on your car within the city. And unfortunately, we're all spending more and more time here in Columbus. Being from Chicago, we know traffic can be a lot worse, and we seem to be getting more congestion. So, what a great idea to wake up, and what a great feeling, I should say, to wake up and knowing it's full of gas, or in this case, electricity, and you don't have to worry about that. So, okay, where do you see opportunities? I mean, in what you're doing, where is a community of Columbus, or the state as a whole, where's the most opportunity? I know you're working with fleets, but are there specific ones? I mean, where is that opportunity?
So fleets are certainly a big opportunity. Just having folks drive around in electric vehicles that they don't own themselves. That is a great way to understand what it's like to drive an electric vehicle. One of the cool things about electric vehicles is because of the physics of the way an electric motor works, you get 100% of the torque from the moment your foot touches the pedal, which is not how a gas motor works. So any electric vehicle, from a Tesla, Model S, to a Nissan Leaf, is going to be really fast off the block. So those are a lot of fun. Some of the other areas that are opportunities: electrifying Ubers and Lyfts and taxis. The Columbus Yellow Cab is owned by a visionary CEO, Morgan Kaufman, and they have a number of Chevy Bolts. They also just bought 10 Tesla Model 3s for their cab fleet. And so they put, those vehicles drive a lot more than a regular, personally owned passenger vehicle. So they're going to see cost savings very quickly. Plus, everyone that gets into one of those notices something different and gets a chance to experience an electric vehicle.
Yeah, I saw that Yellow Cab is a big supporter of you guys. I mean, I think that's awesome. And obviously, if you've got these large private businesses, ultimately they're going to do what's best for the bottom line, right? And so as electrical vehicles get less expensive and there's more opportunity, that is only going to make things a lot more environmentally friendly.
Right.
So.
Well, what we see is that the main cost difference between a gas vehicle and an electric vehicle is the battery. So in 2010, batteries were about $1,000 a kilowatt hour. And now they're down to, I think, about 18% of that. Wow. They cut 82% off the cost.
Yeah.
So they're about $180 or so a kilowatt hour. So what most analysts project is sometime between 2020 and 2025, we're going to go down to about $100 a kilowatt hour, and that's when you'll see electric vehicles cost the same upfront as gas vehicles.
Okay.
And then the expectation is that trend will continue, and so electric vehicles will actually become cheaper than gas vehicles. They're already cheaper when you look at the total cost of ownership over the life of the vehicle.
Right.
But that upfront cost is one of the biggest barriers, and that's why the federal tax credit is so important.
Yeah. Well, and as you talked about, there's that paradigm shift, right, of getting people to get comfortable with this. And,
Right.
I mean, we're not even talking about driverless cars, which can totally change things as well. So, in terms of what you're seeing for electrical vehicles and fleets, anything about driverless cars? I mean, or vehicles or trucks or anything at this point?
There's a lot of testing around that. Smart Columbus has a shuttle that runs around, I think, between Cosi and downtown, sort of in that area, that is autonomous. We're actually, Clean Fuels Ohio has an annual conference this year. It's September 18th to 20th. Check out our website, and we'd love to have folks come. But we will have sessions on the developments in the industry on autonomous vehicles.
Okay. Have you guys been doing that conference? Is this the first annual?
This is the 11th year.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And it's for the public can go to that
Sure.
too, so just head to the
Yeah.
website.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll show people where that is, so
Great.
that they do that. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, listen, I appreciate the time. I mean, it was good meeting with you. This is just over years. You're talking about 2010. That seems like just yesterday, right? And 10 years from now, I just can't imagine the advances. So get to educate yourself, get to know about what your options are, and do what you can to help the environment too. So Brendan, thank you. Appreciate you taking the time. So,
appreciate it.
everybody have a great week. We'll see you next Friday when we're back. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you then.